Skiing Park City. A quiet getaway on the Great Salt Lake. Working in Salt Lake. An adventure in scenic Moab, Utah. Where will you be when a disaster strikes? How will you find your loved ones? Because of its varying climate and terrain, Utah can experience a variety of disasters. It may not be possible to precisely predict where or when these unexpected incidents will happen, but the state of Utah's Emergency Operations Center is ready to answer a community's call for help. The State of Utah Emergency Operations Center, or EOC, is located on the State Capitol Complex in the basement of the State Office Building in Salt Lake City. This facility is designed to gather, coordinate, prioritize, and manage information and resources during an emergency or disaster. The Utah Department of Public Safety's Division of Homeland Security Emergency Management staff maintain the Operations Center and are responsible for its function.
The primary roles and responsibilities of the Utah State Emergency Operations Center is to provide those resources and coordination that are vital in times of emergency or disaster response at the local level, to make sure that all of those resources that can come to bear, whether they come from the federal government, from partner states across the country, or from local jurisdictions that are adjacent, or from volunteers or the private sector, are coordinated and made available at the earliest opportunity to get those resources into that local jurisdiction and provide those to those communities that are in need.
Division of Homeland Security Emergency Management staff are constantly monitoring the state for potential emergencies and are prepared to activate the Emergency Operations Center if coordination of resources for a local community is necessary. The State of Utah Emergency Operations Center is organized into 16 emergency support functions, or ESFs. These 16 functions are the services most frequently used to coordinate and provide state resources during a locally declared emergency or disaster. Each emergency support function is led by a group of trained representatives from a primary state agency and supported by other state agencies, private organizations, such as critical utility companies, and volunteer organizations.
In the state EOC, the Utah Department of Health represents Emergency Support Function 8, which is health and medical. And what that means, what that correlates to, is the simple fact that we are basically the gateway to public health and EMS and healthcare provider. So it starts here, it gets coordinated here, and then farmed out to local health departments, sometimes healthcare facilities like hospitals, extended care centers, EMS coordination when we run out of resources. So we're the problem solvers and the gateway.
Another example is Emergency Support Function 12, Energy. Utility companies and other private organizations are an essential support to ESF 12 in developing a coordinated action plan to help restore critical energy services like natural gas, electricity, and fuel to a community. The ESFs work together as a team and provide the central point for coordination of state resources in an emergency or disaster. One ESF, multiple, or all of the ESFs may be called to the EOC when it is activated. Since the State Emergency Operations Center is the central hub for disaster coordination in Utah, up to 150 people from state, federal, private, and non-governmental agencies may be asked to send ESF representatives to the EOC during a major disaster.
By having everybody centrally located, you can have an environment where people can collaborate and they can work together and they can decide things, make decisions that will influence those resources getting to where they're needed in the shortest amount of time.
An Emergency Operations Center is the hub or the center of coordination during a disaster or emergency situation. When there is just one incident, usually our first responders who are used to handling emergencies every day are able to take care of that. When there are several incidents happening at once, that's when you need the Emergency Operations Center to coordinate what's going on amongst the various incidents.
We are so thrilled to have a facility like this where we can bring so many people in to serve the citizens of our community and our county, to pull together all the resources, the people who are needed, the equipment that is needed. We have here at this EOC, we have state-of-the-art equipment. We have plenty of room to bring in law enforcement, fire, Red Cross, Public Works, National Weather Service, liaisons from military, state agencies, our elected officials. All of these people could come in and work together in a unified structure to meet the needs of the public.
In order to provide constant support to the local communities, the state of Utah is divided into 7 regions for emergency management. Each region is provided a state emergency management liaison to serve in their community and be a single point of contact to the State Emergency Operations Center.
Our liaisons are located throughout the regions that are set up in the state of Utah in a manner that they build those relationships with their counterparts, whether it's in the cities or within the counties that they work with. And so then in the time of a disaster, they become that key point for us on being able to communicate and relay information to us on what those needs are on scene.
They come out here and serve as the eyes and ears for the state EOC as what's happening in our community. And then they are the resource for us when we need additional help, which in a large-scale emergency we're going to need from the state. So they are a critical component here in our EOC. They keep them updated and we rely on them a great deal.
Utah's State Emergency Operations Center supports all 29 county emergency operations centers throughout the state. Each county's Emergency Operations Center supports the city emergency operations centers within the county. Let's look at an example of how the local, state, and federal emergency management agencies work together to help those who are responding to and recovering from a disaster. A major earthquake along Utah's Wasatch Front would cause significant damage and impact lives in several cities and counties. Each city affected by the earthquake would use all its available resources to respond to the community needs. If the city needs additional help, emergency management officials would reach out to their county for assistance. If the county exhausted its available resources, the county then asks for help from the State of Utah Emergency Operations Center.
When we do an Emergency Operations Center activation and it's looking like this incident or disaster is eating up all our resources, and you can tell that fairly quick into the incident, then we talk to our policy people who make an emergency declaration. And by signing that declaration, what they're doing is telling the state, we are now or will be beyond our resources. We have other needs and we need some help.
I think that you'll find that this agency is the main hub of most all the activity as it relates to resources being brought into the state. And that's an invaluable tool to the cities and counties of having somebody above them that are looking out for that aspect of the event. So it's really important that we have the facility and that the facility is adequate enough to handle these larger events.
Here in Utah, if we were to deal with a major earthquake, and especially if it affected several communities in a region, you would see inside the Emergency Operations Center some very practiced and dedicated individuals who are working in coordination based on the exercises and the training that they've had. You would see them working in an environment that at times can seem very congested and a little bit chaotic because of the close proximity that they're working on and the many, many communications requirements that are taking place and information that's coming in from all areas of the state.
We're kind of problem solvers, and so that's basically what you'll see a lot of us doing in those initial stages of the event. Plus, we have information that may be coming in a non-traditional way into the EOC, and then we're searching out where EOC staff would like to see that information go first. So there's a lot of coordination, and that's really important in the EOC, that we have a lot of coordination between all the different groups in here, more so than just dealing with it, digitally, is verbally, giving instructions, so there's no loss of what we're trying to do.
If the disaster is large enough and the state requires additional help from the federal government, the governor declares a state of emergency, which allows federal agencies like FEMA to send support and resources to Utah at the state's request. The State Emergency Operations Center is the central location where all the federal and state resources are coordinated and prioritized for the counties and cities which have asked for help.
An Emergency Operations Center is a place, and it's a place where trained people come together to deal and coordinate with all the complex issues of a large-scale incident or disaster. And the purpose of that coming together in this special place is to make recovery and response coordinated so that people affected by these disasters can get back to their daily lives.
That's the important part, is to make sure that we can get these resources to the locals, to the people that are on the ground that are suffering through this as quickly as possible, to where we can start the recovery effort to get people back on their feet, to get businesses back open, to be able to get transportation back in the valley, to get back to a normal life.
A great way to picture the resources that are available through the State Emergency Operations Center is to picture those individuals who are assigned and working there looking at the state of Utah from a 30,000-foot perspective, one where they can identify and know what needs are requested by a local community that are needed for their citizens to get them back not only through that initial disaster period, but to those points for the next days afterwards, and ultimately to get back to a normal state of comfort and availability. And the way to do that is by being aware of what resources are available, whether a community needs water supply or restocking of the grocery stores that are available there, being able to clear access routes and identify how transportation can take resources and commodities from point A to point B to get that community back to an opportunity where people are able to get those resources that they need themselves and get their families back into a state of comfort and being able to get back to school and work and open up their businesses and just to get recovered from whatever it is that nature or man's dished out. And that's the role of the State Emergency Operations Center, and it's why we are here and working so closely with those local communities and their public safety agencies.